another episode of the Byproduct podcast. I am Ian Pruckner, your host, and I'm very, very excited to be hanging out with you today, spending a little bit of time together, getting better together, because when we get better, things get better. I'm joined today by a former heavyweight professional boxer, Ed Latimore, author, influencer, thought leader. And Ed, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you. Thanks for your time today. And one of the things that I was telling you offline when we were off camera was I've been following you for a long time. And dude, you speak a lot of truth, man. You got a lot of wisdom, you got a lot of hard fought leadership. You can tell, Ed, when people have walked their talk. And then you can tell when people read something in a book or heard something cool and parroted it online. And you are one of those people that you have walked that talk, that you're teaching from some of these lessons. And so talk to me a little bit about your story. Like, give me the couple-minute version. Who's Ed Latimore? Where did he come from? Talk to me about boxing and your transition into serving people and thought leadership and speaking and training and in the book and all of that.
I'll give you the closest to the abridged version that I can do. Okay. So, because it's really just this interesting as I've written the book, I was telling you, my book comes out in a year. But as I was writing it, it's kind of a memoir. And one of the things I realized when I was writing, the challenge is like, it's not this straight line that is where the path is predictable, kind of, which is cool about in writing. But I grew up typical at-risk youth, born in public housing projects, raised by a single mom, and for inner city and all that, the stuff that comes with that. And I got lucky with my combination of with my personality. I was never really drawn to the street, and I wanted to get away from my environment because I didn't like any part of my environment. So that led me to a number of choices, like where I went to high school, different from my neighborhood, and then trying to go to college, but I wasn't ready for that. And fell in with drinking and partying and chasing girls, and then that persisted, and I was a big fat loser. And then one day I got the idea to box, and I started boxing as an amateur at 22, and I don't think anyone really thought I was going to go anywhere with that. But I was very, determined to not have a life like the one I had before. And so I eventually won the state Gold Glove, and then went on to the national tournament, and then won a national title, not at that tournament, but another one. Turned pro. Right before I turned pro, I was like, boxing's not going to last forever. Let me go to school. So I enlisted in the Army to get money for school, and then came out. And while I was in the middle of my professional career, I was at boxing, heavyweight boxing. And then in 2018, I graduated from Duquesne University. I was 33 with a bachelor's degree in physics and a minor in mathematics. And by that point, my writing online had started to take off a bit. So ever since then, I've been really pretty much just writing and in some capacity, working for myself. And that's cool, really stressful. In the next iteration after this book, I'm definitely going to be looking more towards, because when you take time off to do something like write a book, you realize that you're not really a business owner. You're a highly paid consultant, and that's not a bad life at all. But that means I've always got to work.
Yeah.
So what I want to start doing now is I'm meeting my buddy tomorrow, so he can talk me through kind of how he got into real estate.
Yeah, you need that mailbox money.
And then that mailbox money. I like that. For real estate, and then I got 3 ideas for SaaSes, to solve problems that I have. Like, I'm not really looking at market trends.
That's how it all starts, right? I have a problem. What do I need? And who else has my problem? If there's enough of those guys, you make a ton of money.
Yeah, that's what I figure. I figure if I can create a SaaS it's like a $29 a month, and I can find 5,000 users. Like nothing crazy, but like all of a sudden, like you said, mailbox money, and it solves a problem.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the next journey for me. But
dude,
that's
SaaS
where I've been the whole time.
Too. SaaS is where it's at. I have a friend here. He moved from Boston. He lives on the Key with me, and he was a construction guy. Ed, he had like a home remodeler and built homes, and they created a quoting software. for their business because there wasn't a good one. And dude, they sold that software for $80 million. And
Wow.
Ed, get this, it wasn't even making money. It was losing money. They had never made a profit. But venture capital and private equity love subscription model SaaS. I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea. So, Ed, you said we could talk for the next 2 hours about your story. Okay. I want to grab a couple of points here. I want to dig a little deeper with you because they're so good. I don't know if you know how much wisdom is coming out your mouth, but it's a lot. So, first thing you said was the book and the process of it not being a straight line, right? Like learning to see, like, there's ups and downs, right? I've written a couple of books. I'm working on my third one now, and it is exactly what you talked about. But that's like life, isn't it? Right? It's like life is one of these. But where we have troubles is we expect life to be like this.
Oh yeah, and it looks nothing like that. And here's the cool thing about that: you go through enough of these ups and downs, and you develop a faith. And that faith is rooted in one, you've gone through this before, kind of this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And that's the passive end of it. The active end is like where you know that if you just keep doing what you're doing and the feedback isn't negative, like that's important, good feedback, and you're making progress, then eventually the rough patch is going to go away because you're building something in the future. And then the future's not here right now. Humans have a terrible ability to deal with the abstraction of the future. Even in our language, we treat it as a separate thing. And there's some great studies about this that show languages that do not treat the future as kind of a separate entity. Those people are much better with money and impulse control. And you can even see it in the culture that kind of develops around this. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm a bit of an amateur polyglot, is like when you in Chinese, it's very like it's not so delineated future, past, present the way it is in English,
yeah,
and Romance languages in general,
yeah,
Indo-European, the whole spectrum.
yeah.
But in those languages, it's very different. There's the past and future are not so different.
Yeah.
At least the future and present.
Dude, let's talk on that real quick. So I was just in Europe. I just got back. I was there for 2.5 weeks. I actually leave tomorrow to go back for another 2.5 weeks. And what's so interesting about Europe, and speaking about the past and the future and their language, I have observed something that you just have given me an answer to, which is really unique. One of the things that I saw, it's not uncommon in Europe, Ed, for like building projects to be 300 years long, right? Like they'll build a church and they'll be like, hey, it's 1850 right now, and we're going to build this church that's like better than any church anybody's ever seen in the world, but it's not going to be done for 300 years. And they're like all cool with that. They're like, yeah, man, that sounds great. Because they have this vision, like you're talking about. The future is not some abstract thing out there. The future is something that they're going to contribute to.
Right. And look, I was laughing just, because the negative end of that, I lived in Portugal for like six or 7 months. My wife is Portuguese. Getting anything done,
yeah, takes forever.
That turns a lot of expats off. They're like, whoa, because in America we're very used to like you make a call, someone handles it. At the very least, you can call back, whatever. Our power went out once for just no reason at all. And it took 3 days. And we're like, what the hell? Like, what's the hold up? Like, and then we came back and it was on one day suddenly.
That's the downside to it for sure.
Yeah, so, but I love living in Europe. I can't wait to get back. In fact, after I turn in the book, I want to go back for like a month because I can. But we'll see. Flying with a toddler sucks, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's no fun. So you were talking about in your story this like desire to get out of your environment. Mm-hmm. And so like making a choice about going to a different school and that's so interesting, right? Because environments play such a big role, and yet because we're so close to them, many times we're blinded to them and their effect on us. It's just what we know. It's what we assume is supposed to be, right? And it's sort of like if you take an acorn, like from an oak tree, you're from Pennsylvania, so you have oak trees. I grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan, which is famous for oak trees. And so you take an acorn And that acorn, that seed, that has all the genetic material needed to grow a towering oak tree. And if you plant that seed in Pennsylvania soil or in Michigan soil, it's probably going to grow into a tree. You take that same seed and you plant it in the Sahara Desert, even though it has all of the potential's never unleashed because it doesn't have the environment suitable and conducive to growth, right? So environments matter. You can be the right seed in the wrong place and not see the fruition that you want. And so at a young age, you seem to be having some wisdom about that, able to disassociate from your surroundings, say, this surrounding isn't serving me. Is there a different one? Talk to me a little bit about that, because that's an unusual mindset for somebody at that age, right?
Well, again, lucky, just lucky, because it's not so much that I was thinking, let me set up my future. It was like, let me get away from this torture. One of the things I write about in the book is I was just like, middle school was an absolute hellish experience for me. And I said, I cannot, like, I won't do this for another 4 years, and who knows what after that. And so I made my mom take me down to register for a school across town. We have a magnet program here, which is a little complicated, but the short end of it is you can go to any other school if there's space and your grades are fine,
Yeah.
are good enough. And so I got into a school way across town in a very different uh, part of just different socioeconomic background. Not like rich kids, but not like my school was a confluence of all the poor neighborhoods on the north side of town and the projects. So that was a big deal. But for me, it was just about getting into a
Away from
different
it.
place
Yeah.
because I wasn't happy at home. I wasn't happy at school. It was like, let me go be somewhere else. And I think that I say that lucky because a lot of kids in my situation, they end up, finding a way to fit in. They latch
Right.
on to people and the people around them, and they conform to their environment.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I know why I got teased as a kid. I just didn't fit in, and that was great for me. And I didn't think it was that great at the time. I always kind of had a certain arrogance about me, but it wasn't rooted in like I'm better. It was just like you guys look like you're going to a bad place, and I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
That kept me safe, and that was the impetus for a lot of my decisions. I wish I could say they were driven by this ambition, but it was more of survival.
Yeah. So you have touched on such a powerful point, and I don't know, Ed, that I've ever heard anybody talk at length about this, but I wrote down a note when you were telling a little bit of your story, and you just reiterated and reconfirmed that. And that is, you weren't driven by some ambition, some great vision. You were trying to get away from something.
Yeah.
And many times, Ed, it is the most powerful force on the inside of us that we can draw from is not to get something, but to get away from something we don't want.
Absolutely.
It's not to gain, it's to remove that pain, right? And that is a really highly untapped potential area for a lot of people. Most of the people listening to this, they're A-type entrepreneurs, they're carrot people, they see something, they want to go get it. But to tell you the truth, you've never met somebody willing to do the work and get uncomfortable and be humble and look stupid as you meet somebody who's trying to get out of a situation that they cannot take for one more minute.
Yeah.
And that was you. And you took that negativity, and instead of channeling it negatively, you channeled it positively. You said, this is not good, but I'm not going to conform to it. I'm going to move away from it. Even if I have to start again, even if I have to drive further, even if I have to make new friends, even if I have to re-go through the challenges I was going, I need to get out of here. I can't stay here.
And that's a theme that, I never heard someone put it that way, but that's a theme that repeatedly shows up in my life. Like when I was fighting, the first gym I stumbled into, that was just where I was, and I didn't feel like I was getting better. So I did, kind of the unthinkable, not the unthinkable, but not common. I changed gyms as an amateur to one that was much further away, that was a little riskier to get to because I had a suspended license and my car was like couldn't pass inspection or anything like that. And I started driving to go there. And because I did that, I ended up finally beating the kid that I had lost to twice. And that got me my state title. that's the kind of mentality you got to have. When I joined, I went back to school. To go back to school, I had to enlist in the army. I was 28 at basic training, and so everyone around me is like, these kids are fresh out of high school, and I could worry about what people are going to think, but I was just like, you know what, I got to do this for me. It's the same way with getting sober. I was like, I don't know how people are going to respond. In fact, I sent the text to my closest friends. I was like, look, man, if you guys don't want to have anything to do with me, that's cool. But I got to do this for me because otherwise I'm going to destroy myself. And so that's a theme that just plays out over and over again. It's like, I always say, if your own, terrible circumstances don't motivate you to make a change, then nothing else will.
Yeah.
And that's really a hard part of people who want to, a hard part for people to accept who want to help other people, is that if the person isn't ready, nothing you do will make a difference. But if they are ready, there's not really anything you can do to stop them either.
Yeah. What you tolerate continues.
Yeah.
Right. And, as you were talking about that, I just got like, I can't stay here. Like that, dude, that might be a chapter in one of your next books. It's podcast talk you do one time, because like you said, that's a theme for you. I can't stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I got to move. I got to find that next thing. This environment isn't serving me any longer. And I need to move, even if it's inconvenient, even if it costs me. And so many people are addicted to familiarity and security and comfort, even though it's killing them, even though their relationships are killing them, even though their circumstances are killing them. They'd rather die this miserable internal death than get uncomfortable and make a change.
Which is crazy because, like you're going to be uncomfortable either way. So you may as well get something for it. But very often,
get the reward. You're already paying the price. Get the reward.
Yeah, but very often, it's because of the factor of time up front, and a lot of it that feels very impactful, and it hurts, and it requires so much more of you. Even though the future tends to be asymmetrically rewarded for the effort you put in immediately. On the flip side, people think about delaying these changes and these things that they need to do, that they're experiencing less pain. And it's true, they are experiencing less pain for that moment, but it's dragged out so long. And because time is not, it's a non-renewable resource, you can't go backwards. And every other habit you pick up along the way gets reinforced so that when it's time to make a change, even though you've consumed, even though it would take or you've endured the same amount of pain, it's also come along the factor of time, or come with the factor of time and everything that gets reinforced along with that, the more mistakes you've likely made along the way, sure. Things of that nature. It's like I tell kids, the worst thing you can do growing up, if you avoid these three things, really two, but I say three, then no matter where you're at in life, you can make a change. Don't have kids with somebody that you're not ready to have kids with, and don't do it too young, because there are things that I could never have done that changed my life if I was saddled with a child at 18 with a woman that I didn't really know. Don't get arrested. If you get arrested, man, your life gets a lot harder, because there's so many things that I took advantage of that helped me out that I couldn't have done. Like, forget being in jail if I had a record, right? And avoid massive amounts of consumer debt, because that juice is going to eat you alive, man. And you don't even realize it. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm paying $1,000, but only 700 or only 300 is going to principal. And I got to use this credit card again to survive. And it's not going to work.
That's good advice. So, Ed, one of the last things I want to talk about with you really quick, you started boxing at 22, went to basic training at 28. You went to school and graduated in your 30s, right? So you're just sort of like, I would assume most professional boxers start earlier than 22.
For the most part. I would say in the heavyweight division, it's a little more common to start later. But at 22 is late.
Yeah. And the point I want to make here is, it doesn't matter where you are in your life, you can choose to change it. You can choose a different direction. You say, I can't stay here anymore. You become a boxer. You serve the country. You get a degree. You can mentor people. And there's people watching right now, Ed, and they think like they're looking at all these young people doing amazing things, and they think like maybe my time has passed, or maybe I missed my window. And I think, in some way, some of this illustrated, like you've done a number of things sort of unconventionally in terms of like the normal flow of life, and you're showing up to them a little later, not in a bad way, right? Like
Yeah.
that wasn't what you were doing then. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not ready. It just wasn't on the radar, but you went and did it anyways, regardless of what other people thought. And you walked your own drum and you finished those things, and your life keeps growing. And so what would you say to somebody watching this who feels like, I'm behind for where I am?
Yeah, man. There's a great quote I always say from Ti. He goes, "Life's about who makes it, not about who makes it the fastest."
Woo!
And that's not if you really internalize that. There's no timetable. It's when you're ready, and everyone's got a different challenge to deal with. A good buddy of mine out in Portugal, he said something that really um, hammered it home for me. It made me stop feeling. I was feeling bad about being a little behind at the time because it happens to me too. This guy's like, I think he's not even 30, and he's got a multi 7-figure company, that helps people learn languages. And he's like, you got to remember something compared my situation compared to yours. Uh, I grew up with a loving family and a supportive household. I didn't have to overcome and figure out and learn so much stuff that you had to learn on the fly and
Mm,
learn on your own and sort things out. I didn't have all the baggage that you had to learn how to manage and deal with. Now that you've done it, though, not only will you be better off for it, I think about this next part a lot. My son's going to be better off for it,
yeah,
and any children to come after him.
yeah, that's
So
amazing.
you're never too late. It's too late when you're dead. You can always do something, and
Yeah,
you can. There are very few things I would say, because I want to be realistic here. You're over 60. From a cognitive and physical standpoint, yeah, you've lost some things that you can do. Like I don't want you trying to become an air traffic controller or a pilot, and no one in their right mind is going to give you a boxing license. But like outside of like some things that there's so many things you can do, and you should never accept it. There's so many other stories I could tell you along the way uh, about not accepting what the limitation says and having some success with that. Just
that's
aside
so
from
good.
everything I'm talking about now.
Yeah, that's so good. So Ed, listen, we could talk for hours, man. I've so enjoyed our conversation. We'll have to do this again because I want to talk with you further. But how do people connect with you?
The cool
So how do they find out about your book? What's your Instagram? Do you have a mailing list that they can jump on? How do they connect with Ed?
the cool thing is if you just go to Google and type Ed Latimore, everything shows up because I'm Ed Latimore on all platforms. I'm Ed Latimore, Twitter, Instagram, my YouTube does come up now as Ed Latimore, and you'll see the logo, but it's Ed Latty one because people are weird. Uh, my website is edlatimore.com, and from there you can sign up to the newsletter. So I'm easy to find and everywhere. And then as things get closer and closer to the book, I'm sure we'll talk a lot because there are so many cool themes that I think you will resonate
Yeah.
with and
Bro,
find.
we'll absolutely have you back on the podcast as you get ready to launch. Okay. We'll have you out to some of our groups, and however we can support you, I want to support you because again, I've been following you for a long time. You got a lot of wisdom, brother. You got a lot of truth on the inside of you, and you're very humble, right? And where you've come from and what you've done, and you're just getting started, man. I love it. And I think it's amazing. So guys,
Thank you.
listen, thank you so much for your time today. We know your time's valuable. Thanks for investing a little bit of it with Ed and I. Until next time, we'll see you soon.